Hi there, it's Miss Gretchen. I'm coming to you today with another Bible story. Today we're going to be looking at 1 Samuel chapter 17, which is the story of David and Goliath. You've probably heard it before, so you can read along if you want, or you can just listen to the story. David had already been anointed to be king. He's not king yet, but they had come and they had put oil on his head, indicating that God promised that David was going to be a great king one day. So after that happens, David has some other adventures before he actually gets to be king. So this is one of those. He's the youngest of 8 brothers, and if you have any siblings, you probably know what it's like to either get annoyed at your younger siblings, or maybe you are the youngest sibling and you know that your older siblings get annoyed at you sometimes. Well, in the story in the Bible, in 1 Samuel 17, it's pretty obvious that David's older brothers get annoyed at him pretty frequently. Even when he shows up and brings them food, they're at war. So his older brothers have gone to war with Saul against the Philistines. And Israel, that's who David's family is a part of. The tribe of Israel, they're trying to protect their land. The Philistines are coming in and saying, hey, we're going to use these roads. We're going to set up camp here. And Israel says, no, 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 this is our land. So these two armies join in battle. So David's older brothers, they've gone off to battle to fight for Saul. And David, sent by his father, brings them food and snacks and comes to ask, hey, how are you guys doing? Are you okay? Dad's worried about you, right? And they turn around and they're annoyed at him. Why are you here? You're lazy, and what are you doing? So if you're a sibling, you probably can identify with that. You probably know what it's like to have your siblings be annoyed at you for no reason other than that you're siblings, right? So that's David. He's the youngest, and his brothers are all annoyed at him. At least the 3 oldest ones are, is what the Bible tells us. So Israel and the Philistines are joined in battle, or they're about to. They're camped out there. And what happens is that sometimes when there are battles, the leaders decide that they don't want to risk everyone dying. They don't want to risk an all-out war. So what they'll do is a battle of champions. They'll have, each side will have their best man go forward, and those 2 men will fight. And then whoever is victorious, their army is the winner of the battle. And that way, not everyone has to fight or die. There's a lot less bloodshed, and they can resolve the conflict that way. It doesn't always work out, but that's where we find these 2 armies when we pick up this story, Israel and the Philistines. And what's really happened actually is the Philistines have this giant guy, and when we talk about a giant guy, he's actually 9 feet tall. That's higher than the ceilings are in your house. 9 feet tall. He's like almost the height of a basketball net or something like that. He's really tall. And he's not just tall, he's also strong, and he's a fighter, and he's been a fighter since his youth. He's a soldier, and he's got armor and weapons, and so he's a pretty scary guy. Saul is asking, hey, somebody needs to go fight this guy. Who's going to do it? Who in our army is brave enough and strong enough? Who's going to go fight this guy? And what happens is that all of Saul's men are afraid to go fight Goliath. Which is pretty incredible because they're soldiers too. They've been fighting, they've been trained, this is what their purpose is in life, and yet they're all afraid, including David's older brothers. They're all afraid. And there could be a couple of reasons. Maybe they're thinking that none of them are as big as Goliath, and maybe they're also thinking that, hey, everybody around me is saying no, so probably the best thing is just to say no. So this has been going on for 40 days. And just to give you some perspective, 40 days is used a lot in the Bible. 40 days is how long Jesus fasted in the wilderness. 40 days is, well, actually 40 years is how long Israel was wandering in the desert for, the tribe of Israel. But 40 is used a number of different times. 40 days is how long it rained when Noah was in the ark. And we know that 40 days of rain flooded the entire earth. So 40 days is a long time. This has been going on 40 days, and none of Saul's men have the courage to stand up and fight Goliath. So they're sitting here, and they're basically going to lose this battle unless somebody will go fight Goliath. That's the situation that they're in, David shows up and his older brothers immediately are super annoyed at him. So David starts asking around, hey, what's going on? Who's this Goliath guy? What's happening here? And in doing that, Saul hears about it. He hears that David is there, and he hears that David is asking about this whole Goliath thing. And so Saul calls David in to talk to him. And here's how the conversation goes. So again, 1 Samuel chapter 17, and this is verse 31. I'm just going to read you a part of the story here. Now, when the words which David spoke were heard, they reported them to Saul. Saul's the king, and he sent for him. He sent for David. Then David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him, because of Goliath. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. So David's like, I'm going to go. I'm going to do this. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him. You are a youth. You're just a kid. And he is a man of war from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep his father's sheep, and when a lion or bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it and delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them. He's comparing Goliath to an animal. Seeing he has defied the armies of the living God. Moreover, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. So in the end, it's not actually David's courage that convinces Saul. It's the fact that David is relying on God. He's calling on God to be his strength and to win this battle for him. So a couple of things here. God's timing, we know, is perfect. 40 days. It took 40 days. And all of Saul's men said no. They were hiding in fear. They ran away every time Goliath came out. 40 days. And then that's when David's father sends him to the battle. And he shows up just at the right time. So we don't always know what God's timing is. But in this case, God's timing was perfect. This is a situation where God sent David right when he was most needed into the middle of this battle. God's faithfulness, we know the rest of the story. We know that David did in fact win the battle, right? He got his stones and his sling. He couldn't carry Saul's armor. It was too heavy. He used what he knew, and God took that little stone and used it to knock Goliath in the head, and he fell down dead immediately. Right? And then David goes over and they cut his head off. So Goliath is no more. He's no longer threatening them. And the Israelites win the battle and protect their land. So God's timing is perfect. God is faithful. He does what he says he'll do. But in David, there's no fear. He doesn't run away like his brothers do or like the other men do. He doesn't hide or shake in his boots. He says, no, God is my protector and God can do this. I can't do this, but God can do this. So David's faith in God and trust in God leads him to act in a way that seems kind of foolish, right? Because he's a little boy and he's going up against this huge giant, but actually God wanted to do this. He wanted to defeat the Philistines for the Israelites so that they could be victorious this day. So David's trust in God and David's actions in faithfulness to trust God are really what we come away with this story, from this story with. So I want to leave you with that and ask you, what are things in your life that God is calling you to be faithful in, and how can you answer that call? How can you do what God's calling you to do, even though you're little and even though it seems crazy? Are there things that God wants to do in you and with you because of your faith in him? And I can tell you the answer is yes. So your challenge is to figure out, what are those things? What are the things God wants to do with you and in you, even though you're little, even though you're a boy or a girl, even though you're a little kid, just like David was when this happened? What does God want to do with you? So thanks for listening today and have a great week. God bless.